Hello and welcome to the 11th episode in the Farleigh Park build series. It's been a while since the last episode, which was the park tour, but I've got so many updates to share with you in today's episode. Starting here in the Steampunk area, we're going to move all around the park. There's only 2 or 3 lands where there's no actual updates to talk about. There's just been so much that I've been working on. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into all the updates. So, starting off today's episode here, just outside the Steampunk area, this is the secondary entrance. This is near the City Land and the Adventure Land just here. And yeah, you can see loads of theming. We've got cogs spinning, pistons, pipes, loads of smoke, just kind of loads of cool details like the cracked bricks, all the clutter, this cool TMTK piece I found for a lamp cover that looks so cool. And this large gap here in the middle is going to be where the area name goes once I've decided it. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Yeah, this is going to go right in the middle of this giant brick wall, and I'll put loads of other details all around it once I've settled on a name. But anyway, let's head into the area. You can see we've got a cool entrance tunnel. Rookburg is definitely a massive inspiration here. The tunnel for Rookburg is a lot bigger than this one, but I still wanted to have some sort of tunnel. Yeah, on the one side we have the clock here, we've got lights, we've got these kind of steel panels. We've got kind of the damage on the brick walls. We've got loads of clutter. This is my favourite one. I've used a bunch of flowers recoloured black to kind of represent bits of coal. And on the other side we have pipes, we have arches. These Victorian pieces are so useful for steampunk. We've got ourselves a staff entry door. So it will probably be some offices kind of around there. There's also a couple of steam jets here that kind of fire randomly, which I think is pretty cool. And again, loads more clutter. And as we enter the land itself, we can see the giant RMC coaster I've been working on. But we'll get to that later. If we turn around, from the other side, this entrance is awesome. I love the kind of archway I've got here with the clock, all the pipes going. Another small detail here has got like the coal piling up on one side here, because it's a ramp. And yeah, absolutely love how cool this looks. But as we continue moving into the area and look down to one side, I think the best view spot for this is probably around here. I've started doing some theming work on this land, and this is kind of what you can expect from all of these facades. I'm so happy with how this is looking now. I've downloaded like 100 TMTK steampunk related items to try and make this a super immersive area. We've got pipes, windows, different colours of bricks, just arches everywhere, loads of metalwork, lamps, whatever those are, I forgot the name. But there is a cool little effect here when the train comes past, which is currently just over there if we speed the game up. As the train comes past here, first of all you get some cool interactions with the pathway here, especially this one here where it kind of bursts out the pathway. But as it approaches the tunnel, there's a cool effect where the pistons start spinning the cog and then all the steam comes out. In terms of the tunnel itself, we'll head round to the other side of the area entrance. I've done a bit of work on the facades here, not as much as of course on the other sides, but a little bit nonetheless. And you know, cool fence here splitting off the 2 separate areas, all these various pipes with the smoke coming out of them, these cool archways and stuff like the support pillars. You can also see the tunnel, and if I just go over this way, I can drop down onto the ground and actually have a much closer look at all of this. You can see into the tunnel there. There's a ton of details inside of that. I'm super happy with how it came out. And then down here I've got more clutter like newspapers, bags, crates, barrels, and yeah, I found this TMTK piece like a rubble pile that I'm using for coal. There's another steampunk creation called Brickburg, I think, that uses this technique, and I thought it looked amazing, so I stole that one and put it in here as well. So you've got the tunnel there, and you've got all the cool angles of like this cool pipe metalwork thing, kind of not being flush against the wall but kind of being between them there. Anyway, let's hop out of Tegidcam for a second and take a better look at the area. So I've already really been working on this one section here. There's like a closer view at all of that stuff. There's also loads of clutter down here as you head into the tunnel. So yeah, really happy with all of that. But if we talk about the rest of the area, we'll start with the RMC because that's kind of the big update today. It's about 2/3 of the layout is now completed. Reworked this section here, so instead of it hitting the brakes down there and then going into a lift tilt, which I thought was a bit silly, it now just rises up into a brake run. Not a very long one because it would have lost most of its speed by then, before going over the transfer track and into the station. There's more land at the back of the park, we'll go into that later. So yeah, stick to the end if you want to find out kind of why this has all changed. But now that there's more land there, I've been able to have a bit more space to work with to make kind of the initial lift hill and the first drop and all of that, instead of being really constrained on space. I've also reworked the maintenance building over here to include 2 sets of tracks, so both trains can be stored off of the layout when the ride's not open, which I think is much better than only having space for one and then being forced to keep one in here. The lift hill is in. I think this is pretty much how tall it's going to be. Not 100% though, it might get a bit longer if the layout needs a bit more speed. Let's head round this way. We've of course got the cool tunnel. It means that this element here can be a lot smoother than it was before. We've got this nice little element here, this little bunny hop, and there's this nice helix, another airtime hill. This is actually a double up. I think the train's on its way around. Yes, it's going through this store, which we'll talk about in a second. Then it dives down back underneath the path into a really cool double up, and then into that helix, and round through the final couple elements there. This stall, I both love it and hate it at the same time. I love the positioning here. It's going to look really cool with the station building behind it, which is going to be I've been sketching like a design for a little bit now, and I think it's going to look really cool once that's all in there. But I also hate it because it took so long to get this profiled and fairly smooth. Every time I tried to smooth it, Planet Coaster would just do some completely bizarre track work. So yeah, that took a really long time, but I finally managed to get it in there to a point where it is fairly smooth. We'll get to see the train demonstrate that in just a second, as it comes over the airtime hill and over the stall. Yeah, absolutely love how that all works. Just before the stall then we have this airtime hill, which I think gives like flow ejector, I'd say. It's not super ejector, but it's also definitely not floater. Got this cool helix here. This is definitely going to be part of the queue line with the cool theming piece in the middle, and this wave turn, which is satisfying from this side, but it's the most satisfying part is easily watching it go through there from down here, because it's just I don't know if this is how they're profiling in real life, but it's just so much fun to watch. Just wait for the coaster to come through this way. So satisfying to watch that. And yeah, the last element that I've got then is this double up here, where it kind of dives under the pathway into airtime pop number 1, then another one, and then it kind of dives down into that wave turn. Everything before that is just kind of a placeholder. I don't know what I'm going to do here just yet, either an airtime hill or a 0G roll. This is going to be an outer bank. I've had this planned for about a year now. And then we'll have a speed hill and the first drop, but none of this is final. This is me kind of just playing around a bit, just kind of putting it in so I know roughly how big that lift hill needs to be. In terms of the ride queue line then, I've put in like the last section, which is down here underneath the station, and we've also got our fast pass section here, so a little bit of queue line, can put a cool bit of theming in the middle there, and there's this final section which will go around some more theming before we take the stairs up into the train station. And I've also worked the path here to have space for a lift, which will go right there, because this will have stairs. And this is also kind of the beginning of the queue line. This is where it splits off. We've got the fast track entrance there, and this will head off down along the lift hill, and then, as I said, into sections all around here for that part of the queue line before coming back on this side. The area pathing in general has also been reworked. I had turbine over here, but it has these weird explosions that come out of the side, out of these giant pipes. Every time it starts to cycle, so I thought I'll move it more towards the middle so it doesn't really kind of come out of the area as much as it did, because you could hear it from Farleigh Avenue. I didn't really like that. Just see the coaster going around there. It's going to have so much interaction with the path. It's going to be so much fun once the whole land is completed. So yeah, so that's reworked the pathing here. There's no longer a path that heads out that way. Also got the queue line in, just a basic cattle pen off to one side. And yeah, it's kind of the centerpiece of the land now. I think when we had the RMC with its airtime hill before, it would have kind of blocked off a lot of the view, whereas now you get this awesome view of the coaster in the background and then the flat ride in the front here. Don't think I've got space for a second flat ride in this area, but I want to make it immersive in like the main idea behind this land, instead of having as many rides in here as possible. As I mentioned, I'm doing some work on the secondary entrance. The main entrance has had a bit of work. I already really put in the structure here. This will be a tunnel similar to what I've done over here. I like the idea of having a tunnel to enter the land, but this one is like from the side instead of straight on. And again, it will have the area name on both sides and a really cool theming piece here. Maybe the name will be in the middle there and we'll have something else on these two sides. So yeah, I've started planning kind of the layout of the facades around there, and also here a little bit kind of how it's going to work, especially where it's going to go back inside the building there, because there'll be a wall from here and that will hook up to the station building. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Steampunk Land. Definitely the most amount of changes in this video. I've had a lot of fun building this. In fact, this video was supposed to come out like 2 months ago and none of this theming was in. I think I'd done the entrance facade, but none of this was in. And then I've just had a couple of issues with recording it, and so in the time I've built all of this theming, and I'm so happy with how it's coming together. This area is going to be awesome. Make sure you subscribe to see how this turns out, because I can't wait to share the finished result with everyone. Anyway, let's move on now to the city area, where really we're talking about the Farleigh Flyer. I think if we start off kind of down here, especially the exit ramp. First of all, I've removed the exit sign because it's now also our wheelchair access, so I thought it doesn't make sense to have the exit sign. We've got the photo booth in here, and also kind of the general layout of how the exit ramp is going to look. This of course all needs detailing, but we've got the walls, the roof and the floor in now. If we head into the station, I've done a couple of updates in here. We've got an operator's cabin now, we've got the TV screens, the chair, the booth, probably this will be like the safety manual or something. Yeah, you've got the door which heads out just there to the exit pathway. We also got 2 ride ops in the station. They also have their various operator panels there. In the tunnel, I finished up all of the arrows, which took absolutely forever, because for some reason like the advanced move didn't want to let me move them properly, so I had to do them in a very tedious way, and this one is slightly different because there's just not enough room there to get it to fit. But yeah, super happy with that. There's also, if you can hear it, music in the station. And yeah, I thought this track kind of fits the ride perfectly, like a sense of adventure. It's the Farleigh Flyer, it's the big coaster of the park, and it goes all the way around the back. Because as you can see, the layout is now done. I think in the park tour I only had the first turn and the airtime hill, as well as the finale helix, the final helix. But yeah, I have actually reprofiled this airtime hill to be more parabolic, and I think I've pretty much got the shaping on that. Really happy with that. And then after this parabolic airtime hill, we go into a Candemonium style turnaround. The supports there are actually based off of Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. And yeah, it dives back down into the valley, because I think it's quite cool that they would have saw, oh, we've got a valley here, let's put a hyper in it. Yeah, so there it goes as it comes up into the element. It might be a little bit too tall. I think it's a little bit slow at the top there, but apart from that, really happy with it. Then of course you've got to have a trim brake going into the next airtime hill. And then we've got one more airtime hill before going up into our mid-course brake run. This actually used to go straight up into it, but I thought that's getting quite far out the boundary, so instead I put a turn into it instead. Also got the evacuation stairs for the mid-course there as well. Yeah, off the mid-course it dives down into an upwards helix, and then if the timing is perfect, the trains actually dual this spot here. As you're diving down, you see the other train kind of going above you, which is awesome. Yeah, after that, back down underneath the the entrance of the helix, and then up into that last helix before rising into one final airtime hill before hitting the brakes. So yeah, that is the layout. I've also been busy custom supporting it. Most of it's custom supports apart from these ones here, which are low enough to the ground that Planet Coaster generates them fairly well. Got to figure out how I'm supporting this though, considering we have ourselves the maintenance road there. Just heading back to the brake run for a moment. I've also put in the maintenance shed, and it's actually a bit longer than it was because I thought, oh, if they only have one train, they need to be able to take 2 off of the track. So this can now store 2 trains, which means if needed, they can operate it on 1. Well, they'd probably want to operate it on at least 2. Just going back into the layout then, I mentioned we have the service road. Every single valley here is accessible by road in case the train valleys. And I've kind of made it like that the landscapers maybe cut the plants back in the valleys just in case the ride ever needs to be evacuated. There's like no large bushes growing around them growing around the track that would cause any problems there. So that's in all of them. There'll be another one around there and also in here. So yeah, that's pretty much the Farleigh Flyer. You may have noticed there is also a little bit of outdoor queue line. I ran a test once I finished the layout, and I think it was like only an hour it could hold in there. So I added a little bit extra. This has now brought the maximum queue time to about an hour and a half. So this thing can store a long queue. I mean, it's got a huge capacity. So an hour and a half queue is like a lot of people for this ride. And as we head over towards the next land, I thought I'd just point out as well that there's also a bunch of the trees around the back of the ride there. It just makes the park look more complete from above. Yeah, going to the next area, the Viking Land. Finally, we get to talk about this one, although not for very long. The river rapids, I've placed it where I think the start of the ride is going to be. It might move there, it could be over there, it could be down here. But I think this is like, there's enough space to put the big turnaround there. Because yes, I want to customize it to have the big kind of rotating platform, or like a fake version. We don't have the custom animatronics like in Planet Coaster 2, which is really annoying. So yeah, and the other thing I've done is a little bit of work on our wooden coaster. It kind of gets a bit of a launch out of the station into this downwards helix, little bunny hop before rising into the lift hill, where currently it just falls off onto the ground. But I also know that the finale here will be banked for whatever reason into an airtime hill, and then it will dive into a tunnel, round the supports of the hyper before coming out of the tunnel into the brake run. And I've also got the transfer track also, which will be going right there, and that will need a fairly sizable building to cover that. We're going to need to figure out how like the maintenance road is going to get to the transfer building, and also like how the river rapids is going to be able to interact with everything. We might have to bring it kind of round there and the other half kind of round the side, just so it doesn't all interfere. So that is definitely going to be a bit of a challenge. So that's pretty much it for the Viking area. Very small update because the land is only kind of just getting started. So let's move on to Deadwood. Well, there's been a few exciting updates. Number one, I've done the maintenance buildings for both Ravenswing, which has the double theme. On one side it's spooky, on the other it's just like regular brick, which means from outside the area it doesn't really kind of look a bit out of place. I've also completed all of the theming around Ravenswing and the queue line. Might come back and put a few more bits in just around there, but apart from that it's all done. And I absolutely love how it's turned out. We've got bits of smoke around here, we've got lighting in, which I think is awesome, and yeah, it's really atmospheric. Absolutely love how that's turned out. And finally, I've also put in the maintenance building for the Skyride. If you look at, I think, Google Maps of Alton Towers, you can see behind the Tower Street station, there is this large maintenance building. So I think that's kind of how they do it. They'd be able to take the cars off of the cable into this booth, and I think they could store all of them in there. Very large building, and we've of course got the road access outside here. Anyway, let's move on to the adventure area next, because a couple of updates here. Number one, I have changed Helios's colour scheme. I've made the track like a nice light yellow instead of the dark blue that it was. Or the more of a light blue, I think it was. I can't remember. Yeah, it was light blue. I thought I'd change it. It looks nicer with the pastel yellow there. And I've also changed the cars of the ride to match the two colours on the entrance here. Don't know if we'll be able to see it from here. Just about. The main colour is this darker shade of orange, and I've used the lighter shade for some of the detailed sections. And finally, in the adventure area, I finished up the theming on our Swift Drifters. Ride still needs a name, but the theming around the queue line is now all done. Really happy with how this has turned out. I think it looks awesome. I'm super happy with just the idea of this, with the giant tent and the theming in here with like the Jeep and the tyres and everything. Yeah, really happy with how that's come together. Anyway, the final kind of in-park update for today is I've added this locker building to Farleigh Avenue. Just a fairly standard locker building. I've crammed as many as I can in here. This is a awesome TMTK piece. There's also a staff-only door that would lead to a set of stairs into some offices, but I'm not building those. It's like too many pieces to waste on something like that. I got a nice few plants out the front here as well as inside, and also we'll have a park map out the front. I need to add lockers around the park. For example, in the Steampunk Land and the Viking Land, I can do those quite easily, and in the City Land as well. But for example, the adventure area, Deadwood, Outpost 5, all these other lands, it's going to be a bit more difficult to find spots to place some lockers. Maybe I can kind of just put them on the pathway out the front here or something. I don't know, hopefully in each land I'll be able to find like an unused building that I can cram some lockers into. So that's it for the park, but this is obviously a resort, and there is a ton of changes around the resort. So we'll start kind of in this section of the resort, and you may have noticed that the Farleigh Lodge has actually moved, and this is why I've got more space now to build the steampunk area, because it used to be out the front here, and I thought, well, you'd already woken up by an RMC running in the morning. So I thought I'd move it out to the side here where it's a bit more peaceful, especially when you're standing here and you hear the fountains. It's lovely. And I thought it'd be much nicer. It's actually kind of in the woods, it's a bit more secluded. I've moved everything here, including the fountains and stuff and all the foliage. We've got a one-way system in place for the road. I've crammed as many parking spots as I can get into there. I've also moved the kind of the entrance sign there, as well as updated all of the road signage around the roundabout. This is now our staff car park, as well as access point to get onto the maintenance roads for the Steampunk Land, and also kind of into the park in general. And this will have our HQ building that was originally down the side here. So that's what that was. Still going to be there, but it does mean we've got quite a bit more space for the Steampunk Land. So I'm going to hopefully put a really cool giant themed room that you can see as you're walking up the stairs into the station there. That's pretty much it for kind of that part of the resort. I should add that the maintenance road loop is now all finished, now that the hyper is done. The last section I had to hook up was just this section around here, and now that the hyper layout is finished, I've been able to do that. So let's move on to the car parks. This is the main car park. I've been doing loads of work here, trying to make it all one way. So you enter from like this side close to the park into the car park, and you exit kind of round the back, which then takes you in a loop back to where you started. And then I've kind of updated here to add as many spaces as possible. There's 2-lane road that takes you to these car parks. Here I had it where the road actually split up here for some reason. It made no sense. So now instead of you come into the car park this way, and you have the staff directing you in. Still got to figure out how you get from the car to here, because that's going to be quite difficult, especially here you've got cars heading up this way. I'd imagine what they do is they would fill up this car park first, so that there's no one kind of coming out of this one. So once that one's full, they can fill this one up, which means there's nobody driving along this section of road. Then these ones here, a bit more complicated. Not quite sure exactly how that's going to work, but I'll figure something out. We'll have to see. I've also added in the mulch for the kind of where it's going to have loads of trees, a bit like this over here. This is a good example of what I'm going to be putting in there. Lots of bushes, lots of trees to kind of help separate the car parks. And this is kind of the only car park that's close to being finished. Just have to add a couple of pedestrian walkways once I figure out how all that's going to work. But yeah, this is kind of what I'm thinking about with the trees. Going to use 3 different types to have a bit of variation around there. And of course you've got all the details like the what row you're in, all the one-way arrows, all of the giveaway lines, all of that stuff. So yeah, I asked Corvus, he said apart from those pedestrian signs, it's a pretty realistic car park, so I think that's a good enough sign to say that this is pretty much done, as I said, apart from those pedestrian walkways. And finally, a nice small change. I've put up this pathway leading up to this overlook, which makes you just like a nice view over the entire park. My idea being maybe it's like a public footpath, and we'll have like an entrance gate into the park right here or something. Anyway, that is going to be it for today's episode of Farleigh Park. I really hope you've enjoyed it. It's been an absolute mountain of updates. I'm planning for the next episode to maybe be towards the end of January next year. We'll hopefully have more work on the RMC. I'll share a POV once the layout's actually finished, because right now it's only 2/3 of a coaster. So yeah, hopefully I'll have more work on this done. I kind of want to start to bring the facades towards the station building and kind of round this side here. And maybe also I'll do a bit more work on the GCI. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you've enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more updates. But that said, I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.